Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to the smell of smoke. You open your window and see flames racing across rooftops. People are shouting in the streets. Church bells are ringing. Families are desperately grabbing whatever they can carry before running for their lives. Now imagine that this nightmare doesn't last for a few hours. It continues for 4 days, destroying almost everything in its path. This is the story of the Great Fire of London, one of the most devastating disasters in British history. A single spark in a small bakery would forever change one of the world's greatest cities and reshape how cities were built for centuries to come. But how could one small fire destroy an entire city? And why was it almost impossible to stop? Let's travel back to London in the year 1666. London in the 17th century looked very different from the modern city we know today. Nearly 500,000 people lived inside a maze of narrow streets lined with tightly packed wooden houses. Many buildings leaned so far toward each other that neighbors could almost shake hands from their upper windows. Most homes were built from timber, with roofs covered in straw or wooden shingles. Workshops, bakeries, and blacksmiths all used open flames every day. Fire was simply part of daily life. The summer of 1666 had been unusually hot and dry. For weeks, almost no rain had fallen. Wooden buildings had become as dry as firewood. The city was unknowingly waiting for the perfect storm. The night everything changed, just after midnight on September 2nd, 1666, a fire broke out inside the bakery of Thomas Fariner on Pudding Lane. Historians believe a spark escaped from one of the bakery's ovens after everyone had gone to sleep. The flames quickly spread through the bakery. Most of Fariner's family escaped by climbing out of an upstairs window onto a neighboring roof. But one servant failed to escape, becoming the first known victim of the disaster. At first, many people believed the fire would soon burn out, just as dozens of other small fires had before. They couldn't have been more wrong. Why the fire spread so quickly? Several factors turned a small bakery fire into an unstoppable disaster. First, powerful east winds pushed burning embers through the air, carrying fire from one building to the next. Second, London's streets were incredibly narrow. Houses stood so close together that flames could easily leap across the gaps. Third, nearly every building was made of dry wood. And finally, the city had no professional fire department. Firefighters as we know them simply didn't exist. People fought fires using leather buckets filled with water, ladders, axes, and simple hand pumps. The most effective method was often to demolish buildings ahead of the flames, creating empty spaces called fire breaks. Unfortunately, city officials hesitated. They feared angering wealthy property owners by destroying valuable buildings. That delay proved disastrous. As dawn arrived, the fire had already spread beyond control. Entire streets disappeared behind walls of flames. Families rushed through crowded roads carrying furniture, clothing, food, and whatever valuables they could save. Many fled toward the River Thames, hoping boats could carry them to safety. Others watched helplessly as years of hard work vanished in a matter of minutes. The heat became so intense that windows shattered from hundreds of meters away. Burning debris floated through the air, starting new fires far ahead of the main blaze. Even stone buildings were not completely safe. Lead roofs melted and flowed through the streets like rivers. The fire was becoming a force of nature. For 4 terrifying days, London continued to burn. Churches, homes, shops, warehouses, and public buildings collapsed one after another. One of the most heartbreaking moments came when St. Paul's Cathedral caught fire. Many people believed its thick stone walls would protect it. Instead, the wooden scaffolding surrounding the cathedral ignited. Soon the roof collapsed, and the magnificent building was consumed by flames. The city's skyline disappeared beneath enormous clouds of smoke. By now, thousands of people had become homeless. Markets closed. Businesses vanished overnight. The economic heart of England had nearly stopped beating. As the disaster grew worse, King Charles II personally became involved. He ordered soldiers and citizens to work together. This time there was no hesitation. Buildings standing in the fire's path were blown up using gunpowder to create wide fire breaks. It was a risky strategy, but it finally slowed the advancing flames. At the same time, firefighters and volunteers formed long bucket lines from the River Thames. Working day and night, they battled exhaustion, smoke, and unbearable heat. Eventually, the winds weakened. Combined with the newly created fire breaks, firefighters finally gained the upper hand. On September 6th, after 4 days of destruction, the Great Fire of London was finally under control. The damage was almost beyond imagination. More than 13,000 houses had been destroyed. Around 87 churches were lost. Government buildings, markets, and thousands of businesses had disappeared. An estimated 70,000 people, most of the city's population, were left homeless. Surprisingly, official records listed only a small number of deaths. However, many historians believe the real number was much higher, as the deaths of poorer citizens often went unrecorded and the intense fire may have completely destroyed many victims' remains. What was certain was that countless lives had been changed forever. The disaster forced London to rethink everything. New laws required buildings to be constructed mainly from brick and stone instead of wood. Streets were widened to slow the spread of future fires. Building standards became much stricter. Architect Sir Christopher Wren helped redesign many parts of the city, including the magnificent new St. Paul's Cathedral that still stands today. The Great Fire had destroyed medieval London. In its place rose a safer, stronger, and more modern city. More than 350 years later, the Great Fire of London remains one of history's most important lessons in urban planning and fire safety. It showed the dangers of overcrowded wooden cities. It encouraged governments to improve emergency planning. It inspired better building regulations that continue to influence modern construction around the world. Perhaps most importantly, it proved that even after unimaginable destruction, a city can rebuild itself stronger than before. Today, visitors walking through London may see modern skyscrapers, busy streets, and historic landmarks. Yet beneath it all lies the story of a city that once burned for 4 unforgettable days. A single spark changed history forever, and its lessons still protect millions of people today. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to explore more of history's greatest events, don't forget to subscribe and join us for our next journey into the past.